Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you very much for attending today's webinar. I'm just going to try to admit everyone who is waiting in the lobby in case you haven't registered and for some strange reason are in the lobby. We do have a number of people still joining, so we'll just wait a few minutes. In the meantime, I'll quickly do an introduction of our speakers today. Very happy to have them. You probably might have seen them at BAPO's regional conference a few months ago. And they've kindly done a video for us, which you might have seen, but today will be your opportunity to ask questions, listen to the presentation as well, and engage as much as possible. So we have here today Louise, who is a senior lecturer and director of lead for learning and teaching across allied and public health in schools of health and society, with roles including leading on implementation of universal design for learning. Kim is an associate professor in occupational therapy and is an allied health professional development lead across the School of Health and Care as well. Obviously, I'll let them do more of the introductions once we are here today. We have a few people who have joined, quite happy with that. So I'll hand over to Kim and Lewis then.
Thanks very much, and lovely to see you here today, virtually online, and giving myself and Kim the opportunity to share this work with you. So I'm just going to share my screen, which hopefully will now work. Move out the way there. Hopefully everybody can see that. Is that okay?
Yes.
Okay, lovely, thank you. So just to introduce myself, my name is Louise Henstock and I work at the University of Salford. I am Directorate Lead for Learning and Teaching, but Salford University and Coventry University came together to form an innovative partnership to work for NHS England to develop enhanced level practice and write the national schema and profession-specific curricula across 7 AHP professions, one of which was prosthetics and orthotic practice. So Dr. Kim Stewart and I are delighted to be here today to deliver this presentation for you, to start opening that opportunity for discussion around enhanced level practice, to support this structured development and hopefully aid retention in the prosthetic and orthotic workplaces. So one of the things that we want to do is that we want to share our learning from the enhanced level practice schema model curricula. We want to outline the national schema and curricula of enhanced practice for prosthetics and orthotics, and outline routes through enhanced practice for prosthetics and orthotics, individual pathways. We're going to talk a little bit about equity, diversion, inclusion and belonging, which was written as an integral part of the schema and model curricula, and also consider the transitions from enhanced to advanced practice. So thinking about that career journey across enhanced practice. So I'm just going to hand over to my colleague, Kim Stewart, now to talk to you about nation-specific perspectives of enhanced practice.
Afternoon, and it's great to have you join us here this afternoon to talk about enhanced practice. So really to set the context of the work around enhanced level practice, we all recognise that enhanced practice is not new. We've been working at this level of practice across the continuum of our scope of practice once we register and then beyond. And all of our nations, not just England, have been thinking about kind of career development frameworks that take all the way from graduate entry all the way through up until consultant level of practice. And so there's lots of different pieces of guidance that is both nation specific, but also cuts across all of that. So there was some very early work done in 2022. Can I say that's early? We're 2 years now into the programme, which was looking at the principles of enhanced level practice. And that was done by Health Education England. And what we were really thinking about when we think about enhanced level practice is we're thinking about experienced workforce of registered professions, recognising that they're already autonomous and independent in their practice. And when we think about enhanced level practice, the commonality is thinking about complex work, that management of day-to-day risk and of managing risk on behalf or with our service users and our patients. But they work as part of a multi-professional team. And if we look to Wales and the definition they've brought through in terms of enhanced, advanced and consultant frameworks, again, you'll see that absolute understanding of theory and practical knowledge, that they're working at a specialist level and that leadership is part of that. That as a registrant working enhanced practice level, we're using our initiative and we're looking to find solutions to problems, and that we do that within a team context, and that we're responsible for our own learning. Next slide, please, Louise. So when we look at all of those different representations of enhanced level practice, and we are very much starting to put down a more robust understanding and a consistent understanding of enhanced practice across allied health professions, but also thinking about the wider community of health and care. If we look across all of those nations and pull together what the hallmarks of enhanced practice might be described as, what we're talking about really is about demonstrating depth of professional knowledge that supports complex decision making and clinical competence and judgment within a defined area of practice, that these people working at enhanced level are offering that expertise around complexity within a specific area or sector of their practice. At the start off, it's about autonomous practice, and that is about the ability to exercise expert judgment within that profession-specific practice. So holding authority within that profession. As a prosthesist or an orthotist, that actually it's about your expert judgment in relation to professional practice. And in doing so, in holding that expert judgment, that you can bring about criticality of thought and action, that you act in a way that is consistent with that expert judgment, and that you are doing so both in terms of using evidence, but also developing evidence to inform everyday practice. That it's about using evaluative approaches to interpret and synthesize information within complex situations of everyday practice, very much within that team context. And finally, that it's about developing as a situational leader. And what we mean by that is acting with leadership and integrity at the heart of your practice, whether or not you have authority. Quite often when working in enhanced level, it's about how you work through influence across that multi-professional perspective to ensure that the profession-specific judgment and expertise is shone through in your daily practice. Next slide, please. So how did all of this work come about? So Louise and I were part of the innovation partnership between Coventry and Salford University, and we responded to a national programme of work from NHSE, was HEE at that time. And what they wanted to do was really bring about some clarity and core value and purpose of enhanced practice for allied health professions, recognising that in England there was an apprenticeship standard that had been released to enable professional development in a structured way towards this level of practice. Now that apprenticeship standard is absolutely multi-professional, but what we wanted to be able to do as part of the commission was to give authentic voice to each of those professions, to really celebrate what it was about your profession that resides at an enhanced level of practice. So the value and purpose of the schemas that we developed, but also more broadly around enhanced practice, was really about maximising that autonomous practice as an allied health profession. And that in doing so, we would be values led at all levels of practice. And that means that we would ensure that we are inclusive in our approach, in our behaviours and our actions. That whilst we recognise that enhanced practice has a multi-professional intent, the schemas and the development of the work is about celebrating that clarity and depth of practice that's profession specific. So what does it really mean to work at this level of practice as a registrant in your profession? What's driving your profession? And that understanding this is about being agile, both in terms of the delivery of our curricula, but also the design, that it can be used in multiple sectors in different ways. And that in doing so, we're committing to actually delivering change within our profession to people, populations, and health inequalities, right from that kind of micro level all the way up and through those levels of change. And that we used our thinking and was very much shaped by existing educational frameworks. So career development frameworks that are profession specific. It might be that there are global educational frameworks or specific areas of practice such as credentialing, and made sure that they were aligned to our existing frameworks wherever possible. And that actually we saw this as a professional journey, that it's about development from graduate status all the way through and beyond, and that development of self isn't necessarily linear, that it's a squiggly road and we might have different journeys according to our own desires as we go on our development, but actually recognizing that it's beyond enhanced and into advanced and further through. And that absolutely any curricula that was development had to be led by employers, because this absolutely is about sustaining the local workforce, sustaining your profession, and making sure that the development of enhanced practice both reflects your profession, but also those that we serve as part of health and care. Next slide, Louise. So if you haven't found it already, the schemas have been launched. You might have seen things on X launching those schemas that the NHSE has now shared within the wider community. You can access them online. So if you Google AHP Enhanced Practice, it should take you to the HEE site, but also it is on the Learning Hub for NHSE. So if you do have access to that, then you'll be able to access the schemas in their fullness. If you're not, then you need to register, but those schemas and model curriculars are there for you to be able to take a look at. As the process went through in terms of our innovation partnership, what we did as a core team was we held national stakeholder events across all 7 professions, but also we did that deep dive into specific events for each of our professions. So you may have been involved in some of the workshops around prosthetics and orthotics. And hopefully what you'll see is when you read that schema is it reflects you. It reflects your professional values and it reflects your professional voice. So I'm going to hand over now to Louise.
Thanks very much, Kim. So in developing the curricula specifically for prosthetics and orthotics and across all 7 AHP's curriculars, we ensured that this represented the 4 pillars of practice. And if you look at the documentation that Kim's just talked through there, you'll see that these are highlighted in separate colours to make it easy for you to flick through that document and highlight which pillars that you're looking at. So within each pillar of practice, there are specific domains or specific overarching learning outcomes, if you like, might be another word to describe them. But there are 8 core domains that go across all professions and 2 profession-specific domains. Each of those domains is then has a top-level descriptor, an enhanced level practice descriptor. It has a profession-specific descriptor and then a pathway-specific descriptor. So it looks at breaking that down into each of those individual components, and that's across all 4 pillars. So there's a lot of words on there, but just to have a look at, those are the core domains of enhanced practice. So I'll just leave that up for you for a moment to have a little look. Those go across each of the AHP, 7 AHP professions that we wrote this schema and curricula for. Making note that these were also aligned to the apprenticeship standard, which was not in our gift to change. That's already been published. So they aligned to those, and we've also then aligned them, as Kim has said, to other professional documents. You can see there they're developed within the pillars of practice, so clinical, leadership, education and research. And now across all aspects of the career framework, we should be looking at all 4 pillars. We're delivering that undergraduate level, and that scopes the whole way across the career spectrum now. And then for prosthetics and orthotics, there are 2 specific clinical domains. So these were developed through the stakeholder events that Kim has just talked to us about, national stakeholder events. So you may have been involved in these, but these were statements around clinical practice that really represented the authenticity of what prosthetists and orthotists really look to do and develop in their clinical practice. That's on the left-hand side of the page there. And if you look at the right-hand side of the screen, here are examples of some of the pathways. So as part of this work, Bev Harden, NHS England and Claire Ardito asked us to develop specific pathways. Those pathways were pulled out from, again, stakeholder events. So you as a professional group identified what were the key areas of the workforce that was driving this at the moment, driving your profession, and also in liaising with the professional body, so liaising with BAPO and doing events with BAPO and getting direction from the professional body about what were the key areas. These are by no means the only areas that are to be developed, but what was asked of us that we give specific examples throughout the document in prosthetics and orthotics that gave really clear examples in specific clinical areas. So these are some of those examples, and if you read the document you'll see they go through all of the domains, giving you examples. So if you're thinking about enhanced practice either for yourself or as an employer, there are different routes through the enhanced practice. So this can be delivered at either level 6 or level 7 study, and by that we mean those are the regulations that the HEI university will deliver their level of study. So level 6 we generally badge as undergraduate, level 7 we generally badge as master's level study. We would anticipate for prosthetics and orthotics that this would be delivered at level 7. There are 2 routes you can see there. So the one on the left hand side, there is an apprenticeship route. So there is apprenticeship levy and funding to support enhanced practice routes, and you can take an apprenticeship route in conjunction. That needs to be obviously your employer who would put people forward for that and liaise with a education partnership. As part of that, any apprenticeship includes an endpoint assessment, and that can be either credit bearing to include the EPA or non-credit bearing to include the EPA and either have a postgraduate certificate or a PG dip. We would imagine it's going to be more likely to be a PG cert because of the financial envelope that goes along with the apprenticeship route. Credit bearing means that you will get credits from a module, so you will do the assessment as part of that module, but it's not mandatory. It can either be credit bearing or non-credit bearing. That's the apprenticeship route on the left side of the screen. If you look at the other side of the screen, some people may not be doing it through the apprenticeship route. They may either choose to self-fund or fund through an alternative mechanism and choose a CPD route, and that's a non-apprenticeship provision. They may sit alongside apprenticeships, and the delivery from the university point of view might be the same in terms of context, but they might not have to then do things like the EPA and adhere to certain apprenticeship standards as part of that funding. So you can do it through a simple CPD route. The idea of enhanced practice is that it's giving us some robust, structured CPD to support this middle workforce. And that CPD route, again, can be either non-credit bearing or credit bearing. So again, it's probably looking like a PG cert, but it can be either credit bearing or non-credit bearing. So there are multiple options for you to do enhanced practice in association with an education provider. We just wanted to highlight the equity, diversion, inclusion and belonging. This was a really important part of our work, and we looked through the entire document to address any underrepresentation and to make the design of our curricula and schema inclusive. Our recommendations, some of our key recommendations, and there is a specific section on this within the documentation, but it also runs through everything that we've written, that any provider of enhanced provision must look to address any underrepresentation of academic teaching staff from minoritized communities, which can lead to learners to feeling unseen and unheard. So that must be addressed by academic providers. All the curricula should be inclusive in its design and implementation, alongside with authentic assessment strategies that address any structural advantage and that are fair for all learners. And there must be parity and proactive implementation to ensure assessment strategies have anti-discriminatory policies and practices for off-the-job and on-the-job learning. So we're talking specifically about apprentices there. But the enhanced practice will be embedded in workplace learning. Education providers will look to embed workplace learning. This is about you working very closely with your employer, and your HEI provider, your education provider, and really ensuring that that mirrors the workplace and ensuring that opportunities are provided in the workplace. And then finally, we just wanted to touch on the transition, thinking about that career pathway. And Kim has said that this enhanced practice, it must be cognizant with across the career structure. So moving from preceptorship to enhanced level to advanced level, if that is your direction of travel, and possibly onto consultant level practice. And this is something that we need to discuss and move forward. So enhanced and advanced level practice are two distinct levels of practice. And I'm just going to pull into the mix here because this may come up as a question or people might be thinking about it. But level of practice is what we're describing here, and in enhanced practice and advanced level practice. That is very different and discrete for level of academic practice. So when we talk about level of practice as enhanced and advanced, we are talking about building on enhanced to reach advanced. Those two things might be delivered at academic level 7. So academic level is the level that the teaching and assessment are delivered within a HEI. Enhanced and advanced are levels of practice that the workforce is working at and they can achieve within that workplace. So very two distinct concepts. Enhanced and advanced are two different levels of practice, but we also appreciate that there is a continuum as you work and develop your skills across all 4 pillars of practice. And enhanced practice can be a path into advanced practice, but the levels of practice, the different levels of practice, must be acknowledged and addressed when considering recognition of any prior learning. So as an exemplar of that enhanced level practice, you may choose to do a PG cert with an education provider. And as part of that PG cert, that will be delivered. So a PG cert is delivered at level 7. That PG cert may be used to acknowledge that learning and move that into advanced practice at a master's level, to do a complete master's level qualification. So they are the same level of study, but the level of practice is different. And Kim and I and other people, including the Centre for Advancing Practice and NHSE, Bev Harder and Claudito, are in a working group to develop specific recommendations around the intersect of enhanced and advanced. That work's currently being undertaken. We're just at the final shaping of that, and that will be delivered hopefully very soon in the next few weeks, so that education providers will have a real clear steer on how that journey will look in education. So from that PG cert into master's level, and what can be used and what is not able to be used. So thank you very much for listening to that presentation. Hopefully we've given you a taster of what enhanced practice is. My details and Dr. Kim Stewart's details are there. We're very happy for you to contact us directly. The links are in this presentation. I believe this presentation is also been made available to you via BAPO. I'm just going to stop sharing my screen there. So hopefully that is being made available to you. There is an annotated version of that as well. But I'd just like to hand back now to Christabel to lead us into the next section for Q&A. So this might give you food for thought. This might be the first time you've heard about enhanced practice. You might have heard Kim and I doing presentations before, or you might have heard this on the BAPO web pages or seen a link to it. But I'm just going to hand back to Christabel now, and Kim and I are open for further discussions.
Thanks, Lewis. Thanks, Kim. That was a really brilliant presentation you've done together. I mean, you've been doing this a long time now, so it's really nice. Thank you. So if you have a question, could you kindly raise your hands and we'll let you speak, or you could use the chat function as well to drop questions if that is more suitable for you. Kim has dropped a couple of resources as well in the chat, so you could check that out. Right, we have a question from someone. Osman says, academically, what is the difference in terms of a person's investment in study, time, etc. between enhanced versus advanced practice? Why would one apply to one and not the other, if advanced seems to be better placed for career progression and opportunity? In ACP/AMP schemes and the job description, there is a strict requirement on time on acute settings or specific specialties. Example, that's A&E, frailty, etc. In many settings, ONPs are on ward part of their clinic days and not to the extent as far as physios, OT, or nursing are. 6 months rota on the ward, for example. So how is this being adjusted in both the job description, the interview point system in NHS interviews, and educating recruitment leads to be aware of ONP's breadth of knowledge versus OT, physio, nursing specific ward time? Given the requirements on study, skills versus core clinical time, how will ONP staff be released from their core roles to work on modules/aspects of enhanced learning? Will enhanced learning be part of the existing orthotist current role, or will it be a separate role that would have to apply as an AMP/ACP? Will funding be given to the employer to allow clinicians to be released? So yeah, a couple of questions there.
Let's start from the top. Okay, so great questions, and thanks for starting us off. I'll just start with the top bit, and then maybe Kim and I can dovetail in, and I'm sure we'll get through this and try and answer the few questions that you put in there. So academically, what's the difference in terms of a person's investment and study? If we strip that right back and we think about that career framework, if we'd have been starting from a nice blank page, we would have developed this in sequence, wouldn't we? We would have started with preceptorship, we would have then gone on to enhanced, we would have talked about advanced and then consultantship. And some people will want to work through that continuum. You might be in a point in your career where you are maybe working beyond an enhanced level of practice. But what we're acutely aware of at the moment, and particularly in P&O and some other AHP professions, that we are not able to retain the middle workforce. We are really struggling. When people qualify, they are leaving the profession after a few years. So what is one of the reasons that they are doing that is because they are not feeling that they are having structured careers and supported careers in their professional development in that middle workforce. So they are floating a little bit, if you like. They might have an idea of their direction of travel. They've not got any structure in that formalized, robust way. So they might be going and doing a course here. In the olden days, we did a course there. We might do a weekend course. We might manage to get some funding. But this is our way of trying to really put a robust level of practice into that middle workforce to try and support their professional development, to ensure that that's standardized across the piece, that between AHPs we can really have that robust level of practice and know what enhanced level of practice means to us. But also, if you know much about ACP, there is very little opportunity in ACP to be really profession specifically driven. So some of those ACP, or a lot of those ACP roles, and the multi-professional framework which has been published is just that. It's multi-professional, and it's really looking across professions. And I know if we have Bev Harden today, she would cite a story about is it an orthoptist, Kim, that she cites, who does an who did an ACP program and never once looked at an eye. This is a person who is looking to upskill, and what we want to do and what we're losing with ACP is that profession specific lens. And as allied health professions, as P&O workforce, you have superpowers, specialist skills that are really professional driven, and that is not being brought out at the moment. So we really need to embrace your superpowers and your super skills as the P&O workforce, to really embrace that, to make sure we are meeting our population need. This is not just about us driving this because we want to be the same as maybe other professions. This is about us thinking about our population needs and thinking about how much that population requires P&O, and what a loss it would be if we didn't have those P&O in the workforce. So this gives us an opportunity, a structured opportunity within education to support that professional development with a real professional lens that is within your specialist area of P&O, that has been developed by P&O professionals, that sings to your language, that HEIs can use this framework, this profession-specific curricula, to develop courses that are going to really enable your workforce to be skilled at this level. Some of those people might not want to go on to advanced practice. Some might do. And either is absolutely fine. This can be a destination in itself, or it can be a travelling journey through forwards on a career framework onto advanced and to consultant level. And that, hopefully that answers some of your questions there. Kim, do you want to jump in and add anything to that?
Yep. So I think, again, it comes back to what Louise and I were talking about in the presentation, really distinguishing the difference between the academic level of study versus the level of practice that we're talking about. So I can see in the conversations there's some questions about trying to untangle that. So at the very beginning of that first question, it was like, why would I do this and not that? It comes back to your scope of practice and what your actual seeking to do in that workplace. So if you're working at an advanced level, that's very different to working at an enhanced level. And therefore, that level of practice you have to demonstrate alongside the academic level are two different things. So again, every conversation that you have, if you're a manager, if you're looking for yourself, what is it that's driving you? Are you wanting to work at an advanced level, in which case you have to demonstrate you meet all of those pillars at an advanced level? So how you are engaging, driving research, service improvement, how you are leading complexity, compared to enhanced, where this is looking from your profession specific lens and what you deliver as part of a wider multi-professional team in that sector in that way, but you're not responsible for the totality in relation to that. So how you're contributing to research, how you are contributing to leadership, and how you are influencing, they're two different things. So in terms of what that looks like in study time, it will depend whether you're doing a full master's or whether you're doing a postgraduate certificate. So again, it comes back to that. Another thing that's come up is about this scope of practice. And there's a question that we always get asked. Somebody from who's done a pre-registration masters and has come out qualified as a registrant, does that mean they're working advanced level? No, it doesn't, because the benchmark standard they enter at is the unifying practice standard. That's what we are all accountable to, is our HCPC standards. As our expertise grows, as our experience grows, then our scope of practice moves with us in light of your professional proficiency. So you are saying you are able to work at this level because of your expertise, because of your experience, because of your structured development, and it works along with you. So that's where the standards of proficiency in terms of benchmarking, but also that level of practice matters, because you wouldn't say somebody who has a level 7 qualification as a pre-reg is an advanced practitioner. All we're saying is that they've got a level 7 academic qualification. Their level of practice when they exit is at preceptorship. That's the way to think about it. Level of practice versus academic level. In terms of how we use this to benchmark practice, that's what we've tried to set out in the schema. So when you look at the descriptors in that schema, that's saying enhanced level practice for P&O looks like this. That's what we're saying those hallmarks are. It also relates to the career development frameworks that you'll see popping up, both that are nation specific and profession specific. And then in terms of how do we embed this, this isn't a quick fix. You know, Louise and I, we've been on this journey for 2 years now in exploring enhanced practice. This is about bringing a cultural shift and a cultural change in terms of how we develop the workforce. Louise has already said, you know, the importance of retention. And I think when we were at the BAPO conference, we talked about your findings of your professional body that looked at retention and how quickly people are leaving the profession and why. So we know we've got to do something different. We know that people are leaving because they are dissatisfied in their role. Now, where does that come from is a little bit nuanced according to the professions. So this is about changing structurally and culturally how we support our workforce to thrive differently. Professional development is key to that, and so is recognising your unique contribution at each of these levels of practice. So what we're doing as part of this is we're building that understanding. So you will see that there is enhanced level practice schemas. You will recognise perhaps in your own professional bodies, work is being done to look at advanced, work is being done to look at consultant level. So we have this understanding of how our scope of practice moves as we grow and develop. With the key at enhanced is actually profession specific. We'll focus on each of those pillars. When you move to advanced, we're looking at a synergy of those pillars, that you are amplifying and demonstrating advanced level practice consistently across all pillars in your daily practice. So again, that synergy comes out in that level of practice for advanced, whereas at enhanced, we're still growing that capability. We are really deepening our profession specific lens and how it operates across those 4 pillars. So I can see there's some more questions and kind of, I can't answer the last one, but Louise might know more about that.
Do you know if there has been any support from companies, Opcare, Blatchford, Steeper in relation to this, or has it only been NHS work? So I don't know specifically. I don't know if anybody's on here who wants to wave their hand and jump in and has got any info on this, or people from those companies. The apprenticeship is open to everybody, so that there is opportunity for people to look at that. It could be self-funded, so like we've discussed, there is opportunity for different routes for this. What we do know is that the different HPs, their workforce is structured in a different way. So we know that P&O has a lot of their workforce who are working in this private sector. So we know that the workforce is set up in a different way. We've not whilst this work and the curricula and schema has been developed and commissioned from NHS England, or what was HEE, it isn't specifically targeted at NHS work. This is about us working with your professional body, BAPO, looking at your established career frameworks and any other sort of frameworks that we were flagged to by the profession, and aligning them to this. I can see Nikki's got a hand up, so I'm great. Thanks, Nikki, that you're going to jump in a minute. So from that point of view, the schema and curricula is absolutely not specific to NHS work. It's a broad curricula and profession-specific schema that represents your profession across the piece. It looks at the profession-specific pathways, and that is not just the only bits. There are just examples within that pathway. That's all we're asked to give. So by all means, have a look at it. I'm going to hand over to Nikki now, who's going to jump in and hopefully add some meat to the bones with that. Thanks, Nikki.
Thanks, Louise and Kim. Yeah, there's a couple of things in there I'm probably able to add a little bit of context to. So like Louise said, this is completely inclusive of all P&Ls, whether you're employed by the NHS or by the private sector. And there's a bigger piece of work that's happening with BAPO. We're looking at job planning to make sure that education and training is embedded into your roles, and we're also looking at contracts, and we'll be working with the companies to ensure that when they get their contracts, they also have the time for you to do training and education. Because that's not always in there, and it's something that we're really working hard on. So I think that's the bigger picture of all of this. We've got the enhanced practice. There's a couple of comments in there to say we're already stretched. Where do we get the time from? And that's about embedding it into contracts to make sure that there's time for you to do it. And also the other piece that we're doing is around careers, to try and attract people into the profession. So we've got lots going on with the life after professional sports. We've got the armed forces events. You'll see some things going out on social media soon about other events we're doing. So there's a whole program of work that's being done to support this.
Yeah, I think I would just add, and this is a conversation that again is not specific to P&O in terms of workforce. We know that everybody's stretched. We know across professions that there are issues. This is part of the reason why this work and other work was commissioned. If we don't do something about it, that's not going to get better, it's going to get worse. So we absolutely just need to think about how we can support our middle workforce, and this is one way in which we can do this, and one way in which we can really embrace that profession specific lens. And Kim and I often talk about this being a culture change, and I think that's a really good way to think about it. We can't go on the way that we're going on at the moment. We need to change, otherwise we're going to lose our workforce, but we're also going to lose our profession specific identity, and we're going to end up with maybe careers that, you know, a few people might be aiming for this advanced or consultant level, which at the moment is and again, I'm going to quote Bev Harden here, is that generic sort of, you know, roles, and that's losing our professional voice. And the AHPs, P&O have some absolutely amazing superpowers. We come back to this each time. There are phenomenal skills that you all have that the population really requires. And this is a way in which we can put your professional voice, and we have done by getting all those national stakeholder events, writing it in the language that P&O represents, and putting this forward to really embrace and structure the training. So yes, it's difficult. Yes, we all acknowledge that we're not, you know, that if we had a magic wand, we would change that workforce, but we've not. And this is a way for us to try and look at it and embrace it and look forwards and think, well, what if I had this and put it in place? And what if I had then that middle workforce who were really upskilled and had that solid professional lens? What would I be able to do then? And this is about trying to capture that space and really drive this forward for our professions. You know, is this something that you're interested in? Do you see something out there? you know, as an employer or somebody who's interested in this individually, get in touch with your HEIs, get in touch with your local education providers, get in touch with your workplace, have the conversations, let's try and work together to really move this forward and try and work this out, because it's really essential in order for us to embrace our professional voice. Otherwise, we're going to lose it. This is a fantastic opportunity for us, you know, that we've not had before. I'll get off my soapbox now. Kim, do you want to add anything? You're usually the one on the soapbox.
We're tag teaming soapboxes. No, absolutely. I think, like Louise says, this is your voice, and we're here to amplify it on your behalf where we can, and make sure that you're represented in all of those conversations that happen nationally around enhanced, and that actually we're really clear about driving the workforce needs forward with the lens of people and populations and the impact that you have on that, which is absolutely vital.
Any other
Brilliant.
questions? Anything anybody else wants to add? The details are on there. Our contact details are with BAPO, and they're on the other presentation, which I believe is online. Please feel free to get in touch with us directly and have a conversation. We'll answer your emails. Peter. Over to you, Peter.
You should be able to unmute your mic. Right.
Hello. Yeah, just a quick question. You talked about contacting the HEI providers. Is at this stage that the HEI provider, I'm asking, and this is a question, best suited to meet the needs of P&Os? Is at this moment in time, is that going to be Salford? Or
so
would
I don't. I'm here on behalf of my commission by NHSE. I'm absolutely going to champion Salford University, but I want to be really fair and say, you know, contact your local provider, whatever that is, whoever that might be. I can tell you from, and I'm going to do this in a generic way, Kim and I have both been involved in this work for 2 years. We are in the background working for our own individual universities. I'm working for Salford University, who are a P&O provider. Kim's working for Coventry University. I don't know whether you're doing provision for P&O, Kim, but we're working on the background at the moment, looking at courses. But what I would say to you, and we're saying this to all AHPs, is that you might be in a specific area of P&O or occupational therapy or physiotherapy, whatever that is. You think to yourself, actually, I've looked around and I can't find a specific PG cert or a course that suits me. Then absolutely, your employer, whoever that is, get in touch with your HEI. Me and Kim will help direct you, and have that conversation. We need this to be driven by the workforce. What is the workforce requiring? And the HEIs need to answer that request in partnership. This needs to be a conversation between HEIs and the workforce about what that looks like. So I'm shaping courses, Kim's shaping courses, but if somebody comes to me and goes, actually, you know, I'm P&O, this is what I need, what does that look like to you? I'll get back and we will then go, right, okay, this is what the workforce needs, and then we need to work together to how we deliver that. And I know Kim's going to back me up and say the same here.
I am absolutely going to say that, but what I'd also say is what we're seeing in the sector is generic things popping up. So there are providers. So if you have a look at the kind of, if you put in enhanced practice and you look for a course, you'll see that that provision is starting to show across sectors. What I would say is, like buying a car, go in and really do your homework, because some of those courses may not represent fully your professional lens. And that's what you need to come with. If I could say, with anything that you do, if you're shopping for a provider, if you're shopping for a course individually, if you're shopping for a course as an employer, ask some critical questions like, okay, I can see it's about frailty. Have you got P&Os that were part of that course design? How have you incorporated profession specific within that? If there's one on ageing, if there's one on MSK, ask the questions of that provision and go, how does it apply to the particular profession? And what are your teaching team like? Who's teaching it? How do you make sure that if it's a multi-professional lens, that it's not just one profession driving the multi-professional lens? So ask some really tough questions of your HEIs or the offer that you find, because if you're going to commit to that programme of study, it has to make an impact in the delivery of care, and it has to make an impact on retention of staff. What we are seeing is people drifting off because their professional development does not enable that change in them or their workplace. So go in with some really questioning kind of, yeah, I can see you've got a course, but has it been written with P&O in mind? If so, can you help me understand? If not, okay, that's great. You're off my shopping list. That's okay. You know, and have those conversations. So go with a real kind of, dare I say, consumer mind. And if it's not fit for you, give some feedback.
Thank you.
Nikki, is that a legacy hand?
No, it's a new hand. I was just going to respond to Peter and say that that's the work that Kay Pennell is leading on, Pete. She's been sending quite a lot of information around to the employers around routes and funding and so on. So she may be able to give a steer on that. And I think there's probably one other barrier that we need to discuss as we move into advanced practice, and that's raising the profile of P&O. So we can say where you fit into the pathways, and so it doesn't become a barrier to you then getting a position as an advanced practitioner, because that's some of the things that we've heard, and that's another piece of work that BAPO are working on to make sure we raise the profile, and so employers know within the trust where your skills sit. So that's another big piece of work to ensure that isn't a barrier in the future.
Thanks, Nikki.
Any other questions before I hand over to Christabel? I've put both Kim and my details in the chat there, but they're also on the presentation. If you go on here and have a little think about it and mull it over, take it back to your teams, have a chat, and you want to get back to us, just get in touch and let us know. Thanks, Christabel. Thanks, Nikki. Thanks, Peter. Thanks for giving us the platform today.
Thank you so much, Louise, and thank you, Kim. Again, thank you, Nikki and Peter, as well, for coming up to ask those questions. And for everyone who put something up in the chat as well, thank you for making this a very engaging webinar. I think we have a few minutes left, but I'll say we've come to the very end. We'll make this available for basically anyone to have a look at, because I think it's important for the workforce. So you can check out this recording when it's ready on BAPO's YouTube page as well. So thank you, everybody.